Hello, welcome to the Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. It's the start of a very exciting series of videos. It's the streak. It's the best streak in the world. Hello to everyone who's joining us live, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. I'm in the studio on my own, but that doesn't mean I'm alone because I'm joined by the wonderful Mr. Donal Taylor. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Rob?
Oh, super happy. Like, I know the world is in a tough place, but we're going to avoid that. What we're going to do is I'm going to every day come online at midday to talk to my interview people who I love, interview people who I don't love, hang out, do some hobby. This is Stream Streak Day 1. Yeah, I'm very excited, and I couldn't think of a greater person to have on than you. How are you? That's my question.
I'm fantastic. I'm loving the enforced isolation because I'm not a social person, so I like to just sit at home and watch TV. And we know what that means.
It means you're going to watch all of The Witcher or The Wire. Which one?
I've seen The Witcher, so I guess The Wire.
Have you never seen The Wire? I hate people that say that, by the way, so I apologise for having said that after you've not seen it. But yes, it's very good. You should watch it.
I will do that when I become unemployed and my business has failed. So next month, I guess.
Oh my god!
Oh, that's brutal. I'm so
Yeah,
glad none of the people I work with listen to this.
we've started on a toughie. Right, okay. Before we go any further, I want to say thank you to everyone on the Honest Wargamer Patreon. A whole bunch of you jumped in yesterday to support me because obviously I've lost my DJ job, which means I'm now a streamer full time, which I'm very excited about. Like maybe it's the push I needed to do this for the rest of my life, which is fun. So thank you to you guys. And if you're joining us live on Twitch or you're watching anywhere else in the world, like for instance, I can see that Evan and Max Martin are watching live on YouTube, and the Alcanot's over in France. He's confined. Mr. Teej is there. Tristan, Pete Pratt over in Northern Ireland. I'm going to say this right. Helgemar, 1980, and Bling Marine. Good morning from New Jersey. What up? JBM shit. That's okay, JBM. I think everyone. Like, I don't want to turn this into a pity party. Everyone's going to go through a really hard time. Everyone in the services and stuff are going to have a shit couple of bits. So what my job is to make it so that we've got some fun happening every day around Warhammer. And that's why I brought the most fun man in Warhammer on, Mr. Donal Taylor. How are you? Like, are you doing any hobby?
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Uh,
It's
it,
it's St. Patrick's
unintentionally,
Day.
I brought an Irish fella on. Good,
I
Northern
know,
Irish.
right?
Yeah.
Is that real Ireland or fake Ireland, Rob?
Like more northern. I actually, so if any of you don't know, I'm horrific at geography. But having travelled around everywhere, I now feel incredibly like I don't even call it Ireland. I call it the Republic of Ireland. Actually, Donald. So screw you.
There,
Uh,
there you go.
oh, so happy St.
And
Patrick's Day. Do you
and
often dress? Are you dressed in green all now? If you're not, I'm very upset.
I love how you think I'm wearing clothes.
Good start.
I have green socks on.
Oh, good. All right. I'm not wearing. I'm wearing only all black, but that's never going to change, so that's fine. Okay. Oh well, happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone around the world. That's fun. Good. So you managed to do any hobby over the
Um,
time, the isolation?
I'm, I'm doing it a bit, but I've definitely procrastinated. I'm doing the proper, oh, this is a great time for me to do my army and paint it to the standard that I want, but I'm going to avoid it by playing video games and watching TV.
Good. I think. So I'm very much focused on hobby. So I'm going to do these shows every day and try and make them as good as possible, as well as the regular shows. And then around that, I actually well, so I was working on loads of behind the scenes stuff for events coming up in the summer. That was actually some of the big stuff, which almost all of those are cancelled now. Like you and me were going to work together at a London Grand Tournament, which has now been postponed till September.
Yeah.
I think almost every other event that I've gone to has cancelled or will cancel over the next few months. So I'm not having to do that anymore, but I am doing some other work. So I've still got some day work to be doing other than streaming and painting, because I'm launching a big project at the end of March, which is exciting, which you know about because we talked about it in the pub last year. So that actually launches at the end of March, which is fun.
Oh, I'm
Um,
super excited by that.
yeah, same. But that's not really. It's such a shit thing saying I'm doing something you can't talk about. So I could talk about it. I'm just not going to. Just wait. But I'm looking forward to painting up all my Warhammer. I think, and doing some streams, interviewing some people. So I think I'm going to just plow on doing that, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. To be honest.
I
Yeah.
think you should set up some accountability thing because that's what's preventing me from progressing, not having someone shouting at me to actually make progress.
Oh, perfect. So if you all want to go follow Donal on Twitter at Wargamer Donal and just harass him every day, DM him, just message him, say why aren't you painting? For instance, Donal, at the minute, there's people all over. Max Barton says he's painting my 90 Mortec guard to give my friends some fun after we meet up. Free to meet up again. Tom Dick says I'm counting down the hours until I have to head to my bar job and see 0 people on St. Patrick's Day, which is going to be interesting. Kodakabi salutations. Gobert, never get to catch these live, living in Australia, so keen. Gobert, all right. I'm hoping, because it's early enough, I get to interview some Aussies over the next few weeks. I'm going to start messaging them after this. This was a bit of a late decision yesterday to do this, but I wonder how. I'm going to try and do this every day, 7 days a week, until confinement is over. So Stream Street Day 1. Looking forward to it. So, Donal, what Warhammer have you been playing or been thinking about recently?
Um, so I last couple of games have all been with the ogres because it's the best battle tome, I think.
Wow.
Um,
I mean, that's a big
yeah, I
slap in
know.
the face to all the Gits players that know and love you.
Probably I'm going to get chucked out of the chat, I imagine.
Yeah, more than
Um,
likely.
exactly. Um, but the
Donal? Oh, we might have lost Skype, ladies and gentlemen. This might be ropey just today. I haven't set it all up properly for the next few months. I'll be doing that after this. Obviously, did a show late last night, and then straight into the studio this morning. So trying to get everything fixed. But by tomorrow, this should all be working golden. So just bear with me and stick with me. And if you listen to the podcast, make sure. Oh, we've got a bit of audio.
oh,
Donal, you're back. I missed everything you said. Apologies.
oh no, is it my side or yours?
Definitely mine.
Okay. I don't know if you're saying that or if it's actually true.
No, it's
Um,
actually true. It's actually true. It's definitely mine.
okay.
Currently, I don't think I'm uploading at all. So uh, that internet is killing me. But carry on.
Is, is this being edited or is it just
We're live.
on Twitch?
Ah, now you're not working. Honestly, like I'm going to put this out as a podcast. I'm super frustrated by the tinterwebs. Some
Okay.
people got the great interwebs. I not got the great interwebs, and there's no way to do anything about it right now. Anyway, love you guys. Donal, can you hear me?
Yes, I can indeed.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
great. Let's keep going. What have you been doing? This will go out as a podcast, so it's fine. What's been going on? Why do you love the ogre so much?
I think the play style really suits me, and the depth of the book is really interesting.
Okay.
Primarily because the factions seem to there seems to be good diversity of the strength of factions, which we haven't seen in other OBR related books and similar. So I think it's just a testament to what can go well with GW rules when they do a job well. Um, so I've been playing around with different sub factions. I've been playing like I've kind of kept the list relatively static, but even just changing the sub factions has led to a slightly different play style, and not there's not necessarily one best one to use.
Okay. Yeah. So I see a lot of Stonehorns being played though. Like, and I did a review of the book. So it's interesting revisiting someone having done the review of the book, made some like sweeping statements, as I tend to do, and then coming back to it later on. So my real question is, I said that I felt like the ogre elements of it that we thought of traditional weren't very strong or quite weak. Is that not the case, or is it just Stonehorns all days?
So I think you can go Beast Claw Raider heavy, so like Stonehorns and then Mornfang for Battle Line, etc., which we've seen with some of the 2, 3 drop um, lists out there. But in terms of the actual gutbuster element, I think they do have a place. Um, we've for the way I've been playing them, I went MSU on the gutbuster side, and then running the Stonehorns for the alpha threat, which I think has been working quite effectively. So I still think the Stonehorns are good, and I like my army is effectively going to be a painting project, so I'm being restrictive on the models that I use. So I don't want to just go for Stonehorns or no Stonehorns because I think they're quite useful. I have like ignored the Thunder Tusks because they are trash. Um,
Okay, good.
I
Good.
mean, but so anything that's I think the Thunder Tusks are obviously like a weak point of the book, and I wouldn't pretend otherwise. But the Iron Guts do put out a lot of damage, and although they can be shot at because they're only 4+ armor save, they don't get targeted. So they're really nice sort of middle our unit to hold the middle ground. They're 8 models, so like chaff units can't, or eight. Four Iron Guts are effectively 8 models for scoring objectives, so
Mm.
chaff units can't go into them, and they tend to blend anything that's been sort of survived the Stonehorn Alpha. Um, so I think they're a really nice threat. And then the Mornfang as well are super tanky. So at the minute I'm running a unit of 4 Mornfang, which is 24 wounds. Lots of healing in the army with the current faction I'm using. So I think that's quite helpful.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's also very survivable wounds as well, right? Like, I haven't seen many people putting down a lot of the grots that I expected to. Like, they seem like maybe it's just people can't be asked, right? Like, committing to painting 120 grots, which I know you've previously already done, is a nightmare.
yeah,
But it seems like that there's some great board control that could be had for quite cheap inside that army, but people have decided not really to go for it. Whatever that reason might be, and I think it's definitely just building it and painting it. I won't lie. I don't know.
yeah. I think I mean Mick Window, the Gutbuster himself, is very focused on it. So he's been doing quite a few. He always puts the Nobblers in his list. I probably would consider it at some point. It's not a priority for me, and I really like my current list, so I don't want to change it. I could see myself running a couple of screens in the future, but it changes the play style, and I think the nature of the people playing ogres is people either picking it up because it's a quick army to put on the table, or they just want to go aggro and have some fun rolling dice. And the Nobblers aren't that sort of play style. So I do think there's a place for them. I just don't think it's a place within the culture of the people playing,
And I
which
guess
is
also, if you want to do something similar, you could play with Gates, and Gates have got just so many more like like they've got so many more things in their toolbox to play with. You know,
yeah,
you've got such a variety of things. You've got like a whole bunch of underspells, and your spell lore and casting is pretty weak. You don't really have many buff/support units inside the Ogre Tribes book. You know, like you do with like let's say Sneaky Snufflers or Fanatics. You don't have a lot of variety inside the book. Which so it's interesting, but also the Stonehorns just seem like incredible fun. They're a bit like playing Imperial Knights in 40k. It's just I'm good. I've got 4 big things, and I'm going to go have a great time, or 3 big things, right?
yeah, true. And I think that again, like you can equip, they're relatively independent, so they don't need the buff and support. I think as soon as you start going down the route with other like the Gutbuster faction, you suddenly start needing spellcasters in there to buff them up. You need to look at command abilities, how to support them, etc. And I think that's potentially the difference. Um, and why Gets is a better army if you want like more synergistic play.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Uh, okay. Yeah, I think synergistic play is really fun. We got some questions in the chat. Do you want to answer some of these with me before we move on?
Uh,
Mere Mouse, who's in Team Wales. I'd like to talk to you about Six Nations as well because that's really fun. Do you think the internal
yes.
balance of a book is more important than its overall power level? I've been finding the Slaves book great because of this, even though it's not top tier.
I think. it is if you want diversity. If you're a solo faction player, or like a solo allegiance player, I think the internal balance is more important. I think for the top competitive gamers out there, it's obviously not. But there's realistically a percentage of the number of people who play Warhammer are the super competitive gamers. So for me, I think the internal balance is more important.
Yeah, I think I actually would agree with that completely. I think the internal balance is super important. Like, and I think that, what like Mortek Guard and the Kavalos Death Riders. I think say what you like about both of them. I think there's genuinely argument in an army for both. Or my experiences are, or you're probably better off having both. The problem is when you get. I think Ogres is a really good example of a book where the Stonehorns are so clearly good, and for the same points, having a big unit of bulls, let's say, or lead belchers just doesn't seem comparable. Truth be told, and the worst example probably is the Cities of Sigmar book, where you've got Phoenix Guard and then you've got everyone else on foot. Like, I mean, handgunners are fine, yeah, crossbows are fine, and Iron Drakes, the dispossessed element, really, really good. But you take all of the Dark Elf infantry, you might as well just put them in a bin or set them on fire, as that one man famously did. And I think that's the saddest part about that book, and it's also got so many strength, like the Cities of Sigmar, because it's built so the way it's structurally built is quite different to some of the other books, although not really. You could have done so much with the Cities of Sigmar book, right? Like, is there a unit inside the Cities of Sigmar book that you really like but isn't particularly good?
I mean,
Yeah.
probably, and I probably can't remember any more of them because you never see them anymore.
Yeah, they
Um,
just. I mean,
like,
you got dark shards. You got corsairs. You got dark spears. You got executioners, which are beautiful models. You got blackguard, beautiful models. Everyone keeps talking about all these Lumineth models, which genuinely look beautiful. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I've
yeah,
I've always, having once bought a dark elf army and a high elf army, never again, because there's way too much detail to paint on those guys. For me, it's just not an army I'm interested in. But if you're super into and I'm super into fantasy, painting an elf is the most awesome thing. You're like, there's some chainmail. Yeah, he's probably got this leather from like this particular region, so it's like a darker type of brown, probably. And you're just telling a story as you
yeah.
paint it, right? This is a gem. It's probably got some magic inside of it. Like, whereas you're painting a pink horror, you're like, pink. He's got a feather. Sweet. Finished.
I mean, I think so. I'm looking at the app now, kind of going through stuff. Great swords, like great models, or at least they used to be. They're probably quite dated now. Flagellants, again, like who runs flagellants other than that one guy in
Scotland.
Scotland? Yeah,
So the only other person is Ash over in Australia. They're in the Flagellants WhatsApp chat. It's pretty quiet, I won't lie to you. Going in there is like fledging yourself. Got that wrong. Also a terrible joke.
dreadful. But
Dreadful.
there are there are so many. I mean, I think they should have just split the Phoenix Guard to keep the 4++, and then be more expensive or not bot line.
Yeah,
Um,
100%. Yeah,
Hydras as well. Like,
good
what a
point.
pants unit.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm to answer Miras's question. I think we're both on the same page. I think internal balance to me is more important than external balance, and I feel like it's easier to control once you have the internal balance right. Surely it's easier to control what happens as to the book externally. Does that make sense?
You would think so. And certainly, I think if there's no like synergistically, if you can keep the internal balance where there's not one sort of defined meta,
Hmm.
I think that's useful. But it works not just on the models being internally balanced, but I think it also needs to apply to artifacts, sub factions, battalions, etc.
Mm.
Um, and it's something that I think the ogres did really well at, and other tomes haven't necessarily done as well at. And I know you're saying the
Oh,
Stonehorn, and I
Zen
think the
Minis.
Stonehorn is
Thanks for
is is a
subscribing.
key piece.
Yeah. Sorry. Carry on.
Um, uh, I know you're saying the Stonehorn's like on balance, but I think it's still like a well balanced tome. It lacks another good monster.
Oh,
and
I
the
think the
stone
stone
horn
horns are
is
fine. Like, I'm super happy with the stone horns as they are. Like, they don't stress me out at all. Like, Colonel Cabbage in the chat was saying, and I think it's completely fair, they don't fly. And the only access you have to fly is one artifact, which a lot of tournaments are banning, or were banning until tournaments ban
what's a tournament?
themselves.
Yeah.
What's a day one? What's a tournament? Day two?
I'll
What are models? Uh,
what's a Games Workshop store? Uh, oh, it's sad.
yeah.
Remember to order online from your friendly local gaming store.
Yes, do that. Always order from your local friendly gaming store. Support your content creators who you like, and more than just me, anyone else who makes anything that you think's worthwhile and good. And yeah, keep some of those. Like, I feel super bad for. I know you guys in London are a little bit ahead of the curve here. You've got Bad Moon Cafe, and obviously, like, there's places all over the world. I mean, Spain's on lockdown. Italy's been on lockdown for ages. I know there's a big Italian community that plays Warhammer, and I'm just like, what's going to be left after? And I just hope everyone's okay. That's too doom and gloom. We went too far. You pushed me over the edge, Donal. We're meant to be
I
having
ha-
fun.
I'm refusing to mention anything negative about this virus. It's
Good,
fine.
good.
Uh,
Same.
I'm just being moderately sarcastic. So going to the
Oh, can I just say thank you
uh,
to the Mizia who subscribed over in Norway. I hope he's well. Love you tons. Hermanista also for subscribing as well. Zem Minis, who's just joined us. He says he's working from home, so he's able to listen for the first time in a while. And to everyone watching, some people watching on Facebook. I've seen Derek Manali is watching live. Which is fun. Over if you're on Facebook, hit me some love hearts. I also have seen the bastard Chris Cave Jr. Is watching.
oh, is he?
Yeah, I've decided I'm setting up a rivalry with Chris Cave Jr. for no reason at all. Um,
Will you just throw some names out to him?
yeah,
Just,
just because I know he's going to beat me at some point. So I reckon if I start the rivalry now, it's fine. Um,
yeah, just get in, try to get in his head. Although I think he'd just ignore you, to be
He
honest.
probably would. He
So
probably would. A
yeah,
big shout out
yeah.
to Crazy Horse, who's just donated some bits to the show, which I love. And then Max Martin says, I've turned to Tabletop Simulator. I need to get a 3-game win fix somehow. So actually, one of the things I'm going to try and set up later. Donal, have you used Tabletop Simulator?
I haven't, but I need to find out some solutions to not playing Warhammer because otherwise it's going to be a year before my next game.
Well, so I'm going to try and set that up after this show. That's the next thing I'm going to do. Now there are some legal issues because while there are, it's basically you can create basically a board for any game in the world, and someone's created a workshop where you can play either AOS or 40k. But previously, Games Workshop took all of those down. Um, and more than likely, if we all start using it, they're going to pull it down again. Okay, but I'm going to try and do some streaming for a while, and then probably it'll all get deleted.
I mean, I think that's actually super interesting. I'd be curious how they respond. I feel like they just ignore it during um I would hope that they just ignore it during this virus issues.
Mm,
Um and then become more less sympathetic sort of when things start to normalize again.
yeah, but
Um
similarly,
but
like as much as I don't play computer games for a specific reason, and that's like, and while I'm interested in maybe doing it as some streams and see how I feel about it as a streamer, I'm so much more interested in actually playing events and going to events. I think there's something about an event that face-to-face is, like I'm sure people love playing the FIFA game or the F1 racing game, but people still go to events to drive and or kick a ball. And there's something about the atmosphere I think that we're all going to miss over the next few months, right?
yeah, I mean there's a whole social keeping mentally well through social interaction is a core part of being human.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
Chris,
that said,
yeah.
oh, sorry, Chris Cave's going to try to grudge you.
Oh, I've seen. He said he's going to grudge me a round one of every tournament. If he wants to lose round one, just waste his time coming to events, then that's fine. Like, what the heck? Because he's running. I literally am running the counter to his list. Yeah, I'm gonna wreck that nerd. Yeah, like it's fine. Don't worry about it. You can.
Just speak to David Kane because I hear he beats up Caves Jr. every time.
Is that like a bullying issue? Should we talk to his dad, or like on the tabletop? You mean?
on the tabletop, but also possibly in person. Who knows? Who knows? Do you know you should accept Junior's grudge every time, but then just do the commentary. So he starts the game, and you're
On a
like, oh,
buy.
sorry, mate, that's an auto loss for you.
Sucks to be you.
or or grudge his dad. Like that's the alternative.
That's true. Oh, no, I'll
Just
just message his dad. I'll just say that you have to have painted your own army at a tournament, and we'll be all good. MJ Pegasus says he's doing WFHW, which is working from home Warhammer, which is fun. I like that. And also, I see Budtastic Guys in the chat. Big love to him. It does not feel as nice being able to chat face to face or roll physical dice, says Max Benton. I agree with that as well. Okay, so any other questions you have about a game? I want to talk to you about social media presence a little bit, because if that's okay with you. Because you famously, last year, you took over the social media admin for the AOS Six Nations event.
Yeah, which I think was the best tournament Twitter that we've ever seen.
Agreed. So, like, what was it? What was your approach? Like, what did you? Because and Donal also helped out with the live stream and a bunch of other stuff, and we did some work there last year. But one of the things I thought you did really well was I thought you brought a lot of people together, which I think in these times could be a really valuable lesson for everyone to learn. What is it about? What is it about doing that did you have a goal, or was it just natural? What was happening?
I think I wanted to create some community and buzz around the event. So that it was effectively bringing people together um, through sarcasm and trolling, which kind of like fits in my personality. I don't think that needs to be the case.
Isn't it also key elements of the Warhammer community?
I mean, it is for me for sure.
Oh, live
Uh,
update, live update. I think that Bobo is cancelled because the engine
oh
shed is
no.
closed. So, but we'll find out more about that. That's super sad, but was definitely going to happen. Anyway, fucking heartbroke. That's such a fun event. Please
Yeah,
continue.
actually, it was the first one I wasn't going to be able to make anyway. So this banning of or the loss of tournaments has not impacted me as much as it could have.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Sorry. Please continue on with your story.
Um, so what was our story? Yes, I wanted to bring people together. My preference is to bring people together through sarcasm and also creating like mock villains, because I think that nothing brings a community together than having someone to hate. So
The heel.
yes. So I created or that's why I go so anti-England AOS, just because they're very funny comedy villains as a team. But actually, our tournament, I think the AOS, the Six Nations, was one of the first years they didn't get booed when they walked up, which I think was actually super nice this year in Cardiff, or last year in Cardiff, actually.
Yeah.
So that's how I approach the social media, and then having like individual villains as well, which is something we always see. So you have and you're very good at building it up in terms of heroes and mini villains in the tournament scene.
Yeah. So, I think one of the things that people miss or lack is that friction. It depends how you manage and control friction. Obviously, you've got I don't want to compare it to UFC because that's obviously a really poor, but more like wrestling. And I think you pointed out it was similar to wrestling previously.
Yeah.
That you've got some the ability to build up back. So it's tough with players because the players have to be on board with doing that. And you have to kind of check with it beforehand. And sometimes I don't get the time to do that necessarily, or maybe it comes off wrong, and it's never meant that way. But it is meant to build up some sort of hype around people, and that's really what you're meant to. I don't know. I think that helps create a bit of a story. One of the things that gets bandied around a lot, I think, in social media groups, especially smaller groups, is probably we won't get to play on in larger stages for a while or in larger groups. When in your local community, you might have someone, let's say he's small, blonde haired and 16 years old, and he's got like a Zinch army. He's got a Zinch army, and all he does is he keeps wrecking you. The fun bit is not to make them out to be the bad guy. Oh, like stop playing with that. It's to try and work out how you can beat them. Like give yourself that kind of like that mountain to climb. I think sometimes, especially in the local community. I mean, obviously if someone's toxic, that's really poor, but giving yourself that opportunity to destroy someone, like even if with a really rubbish army, I think is fun. Do you not think?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it just in terms of if we were picking up out someone as a example person who might be 16 and plays Age, but even before that, take advantage of Orc War clans spamming hard boys. Like that is a personality type that you would want to make fun of in a very friendly environment. The other side, though, is you need to make sure that the people can handle it, right? Like, and I think that is super important. And so when we're looking at coverage, so the one is an element of within your community having someone like that who we all enjoy playing and enjoy mocking in a very normal way. But within the community scene where we're doing coverage on like an international or like a national scale, I think then that's where it's important to understand who can take it and who takes it in the right way.
Yeah, and I think, and I know that's it's the basis of lots of sports, obviously, and obviously you never want to get into anything close to bullying, which I don't think that ever is the case. Like willing participants in the community, and so I think you built up a good like rivalry as well. Obviously, England going into it were already the champions of Six Nations, so defeating them becomes the purpose of the event.
Yeah.
Unless you're rooting for England, in which case the England fans are always going to be laughing anyway. So it wants to be about defeating them in what's like a high pressure situation, but at the same time meant to be ensconced in fun, right? Like the idea of healthy competition. People want the Sunday League club to go and beat the I don't know anything about football, so I'm going to stop right there.
Thankfully, what is football?
Yeah,
That is,
yeah, good. Well, I'm happy about that. So Moon Tyrannid says it's actually really hard to also do with esports, but it's a big force behind regular sports, and that would make loads of sense, right? Because with esports, almost always the company doing the streaming is the company that makes the game. So it's really hard for them. It's a bit like Games Workshop. They aren't going to make Slanesh out when they were the bad guys, or Zinch now. They're not going to make them out to be the bad guys. They're going to just profess how good they are on the tabletop so people buy the models. They're not going to bang on about it. That's not me like talking about that's not me trying to be disrespectful. I'm saying that that's more than likely what every company who makes their own game and streams their own game is going to do. But the right way to go about it, I think, is if you have independents to it, they can rag on the unit / champions / maybe players a little bit that aren't as good. Does that make sense?
yes, as long as they obviously take it relatively well. And
Yes.
that's the balance, because there will be some tryhards out there who get super upset, and our hobby is not geared to people like is not necessarily geared with 100% focus on people who are socially unawkward.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Not at all.
Uh,
But
yeah,
I don't know if that's true all the time. Like I think it's
Uh,
I think there's some.
I
Go on.
I definitely think there's not like there's people who can handle it, but there's also people who can't for whatever reason. And I think it's important to find that balance.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, no, I agree. So you wanted to build up some hype, and you wanted to build up some bad guys. What else?
Yeah.
What else is it you were trying to do, like with the live streaming? Like, what was your plan?
Um, I think you
Not
think
live
there's
streaming.
more
Sorry,
to it.
the social media. Sorry.
I think you think there's more to it than that.
Well,
But
maybe there wasn't, and that's the point, right? Were you just having fun
uh,
with it? That's my point.
yeah, no, I was. I find it. I did enjoy a lot of the. There was a lot of Donal, anti-Donal sentiment as well. The best thing about when you're controlling more than one social media account is you can start trolling yourself. Because I know I can take it, it went down really well. I even had a WhatsApp group where I'd show some pretty aggressive messages from AOS Six Nations to myself in a DM, and then I started sharing it in WhatsApp, and people started getting really offended,
That,
thinking that the TO for the Six Nations was actually like a real jerk. which he was, but it was also me. So it was moderately entertaining.
Dave Fraser says England hating is all about weaponizing thousands of years of oppression. That seems fair, right? That seems to work. Uh,
That is pretty accurate.
that's great. Okay. Well, because one of the things I said last night on the show was how could people in their local communities get on with, trying to help out their local community. Does that make sense? Like, and whether or not someone should take up the role of like social media manager. Now, obviously, you've got like communities in London. You're all separated out into a whole bunch of different communities. But I just thought that would be a nice way for someone taking it on, and maybe you might have some tips or advice on what you could potentially do.
So I think there's a few things. One, you have to remember it's about the event or about the community, not about yourself. So what I mean by that is I think it's actually quite important. If you want something to live longer than you should probably have a separate account for it. So I didn't set up the AOS Six Nations, but it was set up by John, who no, possibly Ben or John, who did it before me. Then um, it also means it can be handed on. So while you can create a personality around the event or the specific year of the event, it does mean that it's not tied into one individual. So this year, Six Nations will um, not necessarily have the same element that it had before, but it doesn't mean it's tied into me being involved in the hobby long term.
Yes.
Are we still on? Yeah, we're still on.
Yeah.
Uh, and then the second thing is trying to have an agenda about what you're trying to bring. So for me, I think I did effectively the third year of the Six Nations. It had already went from strength to strength. So I think Ben Curry did a great job of sort of setting it up. But obviously, like he he didn't necessarily he did a lot of the groundwork. And then John Harper did a great job of sort of formalizing it and creating like it became more of a thing in the second year just because more countries were more involved. So I know for the first year for Northern Ireland, we pretty much just put together a team of people who could go. Then it was getting increasingly competitive. And so by the time I took it, it was more about trying to build it into an event and build it into sort of like a huge international event, which I think went really well in the sense that Scotland still views the Six Nations as the premier international event, and the ETC is effectively a side hustle.
Good side hustle, yeah.
But you see the difference of how the England team view it, which is more the ETC is the main event, and the Six Nations is sort of prep for that.
Yes, yeah, I understand. Yeah, especially as it's a fairly competitive environment anyway. Obviously, there's no confirmation as to whether or not Six Nations will be going ahead at the moment this year. It would be great if it is, but more than likely it won't be. That's not with anything having been told to me by anyone in the world. I think based on travel restrictions and everything else, I think it's highly likely that that's not something that will happen. But we'll see. And if it does, exciting, and I get to do the coverage, which I'm fucking hype about. So I'd like that to be fun. International events are really fun as well because that team rivalry that we saw, I think it was one of the best atmospheres I've maybe ever seen at a tournament.
In what sense? Sorry. Oh, you mean the actual atmosphere at the Six Nations?
At the Six Nations, yeah.
Yeah, I think that comes down to the fact that it's a team tournament. It's relatively small as well, so 40 odd players means that everybody's kind of like involved and in it together. Everybody gets to play each other, which I think is really interesting. It doesn't really follow that Swiss system, so it's as a TO, you're trying to make sure that who you think is going to do really well is actually playing each other towards the end.
Yes.
Because you don't want, like, it effectively became between Northern Ireland and England, depending on what happened. And I picked Northern Ireland to play Game 4 of England because I ran a Twitter poll, which was all about, again, trying to get community feedback and engagement. But really, if that had been Game 5, it just would have been a bit more exciting. Whereas instead, sort of England were pretty much guaranteed to win if they could cap. Um, so I think that atmosphere really helps. And going forward, I still think the ETC will be a great event if they can create some potential hype. Um, I know obviously it might be cancelled this year, but I think and again, I have no idea, but um, they still don't have the community buzz and atmosphere that the Six Nations had last year.
Yes, yes, yes. I agree with that. Gold Bear wants us to know. Last one I watched last year's the coverage of Six Nations was amazing. Took the day off to set up laptop on a massive screen, invited a bunch of Warhammer nerds over, and smashed a bunch of tinnies. That's awesome.
Oh, that is awesome.
Well, it's such a shame you didn't see this year because you would have had a camera on every single table. We were going to have a cracking time. But we'll see. If it's on this year, you'll get the same. Joshua Diffie, who, by the way, runs Down Under Pairings, Donal, if you're not sure. He also, which is a great way for pairing any of your tournament stuff, he also runs a whole bunch of events over in Australia. So there's an easy way to make the last round matter. You have the highest ranked team play the lowest ranked team. They are yet to play. So there's an option there, I guess. Is that a way to make it work?
So how would it work?
The easy way to make the last round matter, you have the highest ranked team play the lowest ranked team they are yet to play. I'm not sure. Hopefully, I'll explain what that is. Yeah, but fingers crossed for the Six Nations coverage when we get around to it. That'll be really fun. So, Donal, you've also been. I'm going to move on now a little bit, if that's okay. You've been taking painting lessons. Is that right?
I have from Benjamin Sava himself.
So, what inspired you to want to go and take painting lessons, and were they worth it?
So what inspired me? One, I think I'm at that stage as a hobbyist where I just want to, like, especially with personal sort of developments, I will not be playing as much. This is again pre-COVID-19, so good timing on Donal. But like, I kind of knew this year was going to be less tournament focused than event focused, so I want to take out a bit of pressure from myself of like, oh, let's go to tournaments. So I effectively have only really been to team tournaments, other than a couple of Northern Irish events in the last year and a half. And I wanted to try to find I effectively wanted to repaint like an army or put together an army that I would be proud of rather than I have completed. So don't get me wrong, my first army that I painted was ogres, then I did my gits, and I'm really happy that I did it, but it's not necessarily something I'm like, oh, that's a great piece. So I wanted to invest in myself, and I didn't want to necessarily just pay a commission. I wanted to actually like specifically learn styles.
I'm listening. Keep going.
I wanted to listen, look at some styles. I wanted to effectively build up an army. The ogres came out. I've always loved the ogre models. I've been playing them for for 10 years probably. So it was a great transition army. I think it's also nice. So I decided to bug Sava and ask him to give me some lessons.
Oh, okay, good. All right, sweet. Let me just read out what's happening in the chat. So the organizer of Six Nations is in the chat. So that's Mr. Pete Pratt, wonderful man, great guy. He says, "I hope to have news on Six Nations tonight. It's definitely my intention to reschedule for later and not just cancel if that's the plan." So excellent. That'll be really fun. I'm looking forward to that. And then Josh is going over some feedback. It basically just means that round 2, first place plays the lowest ranked team, the second highest place plays the second lowest, and so on. So basically, if the top teams continue smash face, they will play on the 6th and 5th, then 4th, etc., playing second in the last round. If that makes sense. But maybe Donal will be able to work that out. There's a spreadsheet you can get if it's available. And also, hi to Iz Peisman. Is that a weird way of spelling Piers Morgan? I hope Piers Morgan doesn't watch.
Where is it in the chat? I can't.
It's on Facebook. Sorry, I have all of the chats now integrated into a thing.
I didn't open Facebook. I had YouTube and Twitch open, but I was like, who watches you on Facebook?
Well, I can send you a link actually if you want to see all of the different chats happening at the same time. I think.
Oh, that would have been much easier.
I have a link
as a co-commentator.
Yeah, I'll do for next time. Listen, it's Stream Streak Day 1. Imagine how professional I'll be by Stream Streak 63. Yeah.
Yes.
It's happening.
As opposed to relying on my internet to stream three different Honest Wargamer videos while they're all muted and also be on
Okay,
Skype.
hold on.
That's
Everyone apparently now wants the link, so I'm gonna get everyone the link. This is gonna be how it's gonna happen. I hope we all get real like personal reach, which is fun. Is anyone who's watching, by the way, doing any hobby? I'd be interested to know if anyone is doing some hobby and what hobby they're doing, if they're doing any at all. There we go. Copy share out. We'll try this one out. This looks like a link, ladies and gentlemen, boys and
okay.
girls.
Basically means that round two, first place plays the second lowest ranked team, second place the second round. So
You guys give that a
yes.
click and see if that works. That might get you all of the chats in one place, potentially.
Uh, okay. That from Joshua,
Yeah.
which I finally saw. I don't know if that works in the sense that the rounds are effectively set. So there's only six teams in the Six Nations, and there's 5 games, or so you have to have everyone play each other. And so the first place team might play the second lowest round two, but that second lowest team may be the second team by the last round. So I don't actually think it works. It could be useful if we were a bit more flexible on each of the rounds, and it is something that we actually did consider. On the day off the Six Nations, when I kind of saw the event as it was potentially going to unfold, but we had already announced which games were being played when, so people had already prepared the matchups based on the scenarios that they were expecting to play. And when I asked some of the teams who were involved whether or not they wanted to switch to make it more exciting, it was not agreed. So
yeah, who wants to make things exciting? That's never fun.
Well, I mean, I understand it, right? Like if you're there to play, it's not necessarily about the audience, and it's something that people are probably going to become more sensitive about overall. But it was something I was super interested in, and I think it is something that if I had have just thought about it a bit more in the pack, I could have enforced it, right? Like I easily could have said in the pack, we reserve the right to adjust the rounds depending on the developments, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that I wouldn't necessarily change which scenarios were being played, so I would have kept the actual allocation static. So if for instance the initial fourth round was supposed to play Battle for the Pass, but we switched 4 and 5, then 5 would have Battle for the Pass. And that is something that I probably should have thought about before, but I didn't. It's something that might be worth considering for Peter in the chat.
Oh, nice. Okay, well, that's good. This the only way we're really all going to get any further as a community is if we have these kinds of conversations. You know, like, and also like it's easy to take things like esports or even real normal sports, and then take that information that we have about them and try to apply it to our game system. But our game system is unique, right? Like, there's a lot of bookkeeping, there's a lot of information to have in there. So, yeah, that seems fair. Just seeing what everyone in the chat's doing. Dave Fraser says, I'm very busy at work and in no way at all painting toy soldiers while working from home. Listen, the volume of painting that's going to get done over the next 6 months is going to be magnificent. I'm looking forward to some of those armies. Pickles EU is saying, I'm currently in the process of swapping 100 spears on Saurus to 100 clubs. Oh my god. JJ number 10, thanks for subscribing. The great Hornrats number of the month. That's right, 13. Thank you for joining us. Bin Panzerd says, Wormspat for my Megakin mispainting Rotbringers. Max Benton was working on his gits but decided on a break and started OBR. Oh dear. Oh dear, that's the wrong time to say that. It's a good idea to consider. Presumably, you have to pre-guess who is most likely to win, and nobody could, in good conscience, put England at the top of that list. Says Dave Fraser. Is that your process, Donal? Do you try and put them straight at the bottom?
Well, so it's actually interesting. So, because depending on who you play first, you're more likely to do well, right? So, as an example, Scotland and Republic of Ireland are, not necessarily the most competitive teams. So, if they play England round 1 and 2, England's probably going to be in the lead for round 3, right?
Yeah.
But if Northern Ireland play them for round 1 and 2, that's two caps for Northern Ireland. So they actually might be first. Um, so I actually think it's a chicken and egg scenario, and it's you then have to look at the teams, figure out which teams are stronger. So, for instance, this year Wales I think is looking pretty strong because they've taken some England players. So the Myhos are there. Andy Hughes is there. So people who aren't really Welsh, but don't play for England.
Hmm.
So they might do really well. So if I was sort of organising the rounds, I'd probably put England Wales towards the end, maybe round 4, and then have England Northern Ireland round 5, and equally play around with that and figure out where leave myself flexibility that I could switch the rounds if necessary to keep it as interesting as possible.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear. It's going to be like when we get round to it again. we can, we can, we can it's going to be a really fun time. I'm very much looking forward to it.
But it's a super unique challenge. The Six Nations is a super unique challenge because you only have the 6 rounds and the 5 games, right? So that's not necessarily something that you have to worry about when you're running other events, whether they're team or singles, because the Swiss system naturally does what we're trying to do.
Okay. We were talking about painting and taking painting lessons up.
Yes.
So obviously that's going to be hard. A lot of people watching paint. So if you watched painting tutorials before, have you never been able to deal with those? And learning in person was better, different? What were you feeling?
So I have watched painting tutorials, and I'm a big fan of the core ones that we see. So those 2-minute Warhammer videos that is essential viewing for anyone.
Mm.
Duncan, Vince, there's Rick, so 8-pointed star, because I feel like he'll be upset with me if I don't mention him. There's loads of people out there, and it's just about trying to find the approach that works for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
In terms of painting style, I've always liked Benjamin's work. He's obviously based in London as well, and his paint style is quite rewarding for how I also paint. So the reason I think that the individual painting lessons, and probably applies to group painting lessons as well, worked better is because you can actually pick out the areas I'm going wrong in. And I find it much easier being sort of told what to do and where I'm going wrong rather than watching a video and trying to replicate. I don't think there's that many videos out there that really understand basic painters who are close to incompetent, which is kind of where I feel like I fall.
Yeah, that's where I feel I fall as well. I actually managed to recently hang out with my good friend Tom Wallace, and he helped me start painting up my Untamed Beasts. And just for me, it's always been picking the colours. Like I can go, I want that to be red, but then after I've done it red and washed it, like what do I do next? And I know I highlight it, but like what colours? I feel like some of the smart things that he did was just he could just pick up paints and just be like, I'm going to do that. We'll do this. This is the way to go forward with that. And I end up just. It's just anyway. Like, I know I can be a better hobbyist, and maybe I'll have some of the time. Although, it's not really where my passion sits. And there are some great painters out there already, so I prefer.
I think there's loads. I think there's loads out there, and in terms of the actual hobby, I think it was probably the best money that I spent in hobby in terms of the value that I got for it for a relatively small cost. Like at the end of the day, this hobby is not cheap. Tournaments cost a couple of £100 each time you go, unless it's local enough that you're not paying for travel or transport. And I got so much value out of it. Specific lessons, and the models that I produced were the best models that I've painted, I think.
Okay.
So I do think it's something that's super useful, and you don't necessarily get it with a tutorial because you're trying to replicate how someone else is moving, but you're not necessarily seeing exactly what they're doing.
Yes, yeah, I can definitely see that. I agree. I also think hanging out with someone was like I also hung out with my good friend Jonathan Etland last year as well, who's a great painter, and was helping me do some painting. And he taught me the valuable lesson that no matter the size of the brush, the tip of the point is always the same size, because it has to go to an infinitely small point, right? So Max Benton says, when I struggle, I turn on Bob Ross and I pretend I know what I'm doing. Lol. Yeah, Dave Fraser, just the tip. The tip is always the smallest. It's always going to be the same size, no matter the size of the brush. Um,
Nice.
yeah, absolutely.
Nice.
Okay, all right. So with this said, we've talked about what your plans are in the future for the hobby. You're going to try and like keep it low key for a bit. Is there any armies that you're looking forward to coming out? Obviously, we know of a couple coming out soon.
Yeah, so I think I obviously the Gargants are super interesting. I haven't actually seen any rumors, so I have
Oh,
no idea
I
what's.
know some. If you want to hear some.
I would love to hear some.
Apparently, flat out, they can kick objectives. Kick objectives.
They keep,
I don't know if it's an ability or a command ability, but they can kick an objective 2d6.
that's amazing. And does it go 2d6 or can they choose?
I think it goes 2d6.
Okay.
Uh,
Um,
so that's fun. So that's super interesting. I think gaming wise. I also have heard, and this might not be true, but and this one I've definitely made up is the last one I didn't definitely make up, but this one that I'm definitely making up is if you play with something already stuffed in your own pants as a player, you get +1 to hit army
that would be
wide.
so good.
+1 to hit if it's something soft, +1 to hit and wound if it's something prickly like a pineapple.
Um, nice. Do you know if there's, in terms of new models, A, is there new models? B, is it just Gargants or are they going to have Grots as well? Because apparently that's what
You've heard.
all armies have.
Oh no. Yes, new models. Uh,
Yeah.
Twice as big as a regular giant.
Wow.
So the size of a bone grinder giant. So yes, new models, twice as big, size of a bone grinder giant. What else did I hear? They can ally into any army. But it's on
Any army
but
or any
any
any?
army because it's on their war scroll. They're more like mercenaries, right? Like,
That's annoying.
is it?
Well, yes, because destruction players never get things. It always goes to other bloody.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. I hear what you're saying. Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Yeah,
I'm an elitist, Rob. An elitist for the worst faction.
yeah.
That's
Well, I mean, Death don't get loads of love either. I mean, they haven't had loads of battle tomes, have they? Um, uh,
um.
yeah, go on. Yeah, so that's
I
all
mean,
I've heard. So new
OBR got a
models.
pretty nice range recently,
Yeah, they
and
did.
Nikon's got a lot as well.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, and all you did was get repacks. Um, and
We got the gets right, which are great in terms of the squigs, but it was just squigs really, right?
oh, it's some pretty
Um,
awesome shamans.
True. Awesome models.
Yeah,
Agreed.
yeah. Dave Fraser says, I've heard that the little dude, Johan, running away from the giant, from the old giant kit, is battle line unit in the new army. If you run through an opposition unit, it brings back the old rules of panic from Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and units must take a panic test.
That would be that would be amazing. But yeah, I think the Gargants look really are. I think the Gargants could be really fun. I doubt they're going to be super competitive. I'm guessing they'll have a similar rule in terms of like count more than one model for the objective.
Mm.
Unless it's more, as you said, like mercenaries where they're allying into armies rather than standalone. If they can kick objectives, that's super cool because I feel like the Gits would just love someone to kick objectives into the Loon Shrine and then just sit there with 300 bodies and not moving or dying.
That would be
That would
really
be a
fun.
fun game.
Yeah, it would be fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all
Uh,
that's all. So Gargants, more than the pointy elves, Gargants take your fancy?
oh, you mean yeah, for sure. I mean the pointy elves. I'm not the models don't appeal to me.
Well, they appeal to me because I want to kill them. Like I want loads of people to buy them. Like I'm super into it because elves they look fantastic. Like no matter what, like even if you're not into elves, they look like they're the things that I want to exist in the universe of the game so that I can smite them.
Do you mean Do you mean elves in general, or you mean these light elves specifically, the models?
I think these light elves are like like they're very well designed versions of traditional elves that we have in our head. I think
That
that
is
the
an
like.
interesting perspective.
Do you not think?
I think that they are much more static than I was expecting.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think the archer, sort of the one archer pose, is so, it feels like so much of a nod to the 90s style high elf archers that um, it just doesn't really work for me personally.
Yeah. Okay. That's a really fair point. I hadn't really considered that. They've obviously done a whole bunch of very like I think of Namati, the thralls. They were beautiful models. Don't get me wrong. But I hadn't really considered the fact that they are. I mean, the cavalry aren't all monopose. Um, I don't know. Because I got into, as some of you may or may not know, I got into Warhammer through the door of Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and I just loved I've grown up reading fantasy literature and watching films and stuff. So I've been super invested in it my whole life. And then to finally see some stuff on the tabletop, and it felt like it came to life. It felt like world building and wonderful. So I loved them being there, but similarly, I liked killing them. I liked them dying. That was always really fun, and that's why I like the miniatures version than I'll ever like anything online because it's evocative, that tactile nature. Are you still there, Donal? I don't think you are. Okay. Well, dudes, I don't think. I think the internet has broke forever now, so I'm going to end the show. But thank you for joining me for Stream Streak Day 1. I'm going to sort the internet out for tomorrow, and we'll do Stream Streak Day 2. So midday UK time. Please do join us. Thank you to everyone who's been listening to this podcast and to everyone who supports me on Patreon. It's going to be, I would deeply love your support over the next few months if you could join us on Patreon. So please do. Thank you very much. If you've been watching live, thanks very much. And I'll see you soon. Don't forget to stay safe, stay hydrated, wash your hands, look after yourselves and each other. Loads of love, and see you soon.